First and foremost, I'm very, very happy to be here. Yesterday was a fantastic day. I Coach Kids and I Coach Kids Plus is a fantastic project, and for not just for the basketball community, because we're claiming Sergio since he's a basketball guy, but I think on behalf of everybody involved in youth sport, I think that this is just an amazing program to go forward. So our opening session today is titled Holistic Talent Development Environments. The session will provide an introduction to the talent development environment research that we're conducting as part of the iCoach Kids Plus project. And to talk about it, we have two members of the research team. Dr. Kevin Till is a professor of athletic development at Leeds Beckett University. He has published over 150 international scientific peer-reviewed publications, and is also a UK Strength and Conditioning Association accredited coach. He is currently a strength and conditioning coach at Leeds Rhinos within their academy programs. Finally, Barnaby Sargent-Megicks is a PhD researcher at Leeds Beckett University embedded within the iCoach Kids program. His current PhD research seeks to explore the nature of talent development environments across Europe and aims to gain new insights from holistic and gender-based perspectives. So, Kevin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Radmilla. I hope everybody can see the slides.
We certainly can. Thanks, Kev.
Cheers, Garrett. So, yes, good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Radmilla, and I guess thank you for the opportunity to present at this conference. I listened yesterday and it was a great evening, and I'm sure today will be the same. Myself and Barney are part of the research team at Leeds Beckett University on the iCoach Kids project, and we're going to discuss and present today the research elements in relation to evaluating holistic talent development environments. I'm going to present just an introduction to talent identification development systems and talent development environments, and then Barney will overview some of the research that we will be doing. So I always like to start with this slide. This is from the International Olympic Committee consensus statement on youth athletic development, where they start the paper by saying the goal is clear: to develop healthy, capable and resilient young athletes while attaining widespread, inclusive, sustainable and enjoyable participation and success for all levels of individual athletic achievement. They also highlight within the paper around promoting a positive experience to youths to maximise holistic development. So this, for me, encapsulates what we're about and what iCoach Kids is about. And in relation to today, we're going to take, I guess, a focus a bit more in relation to the athlete from a talent perspective. Whereas yesterday, you focus on the second part of that statement in relation to youth sport participation. Really, we're going to look at developing healthy, capable and resilient young athletes and how we may do that holistically, and this idea around talent within that. So I guess over the last probably 20 to 30 years now, this idea of a talent identification and development system has very much become popularized. With really the main focus of these programs being around athlete success. So achieving gold medals at the Olympics or achieving success in professional sports is really one of the outcomes of being a successful athlete. And to achieve that success, this idea of talent identification development systems has very much come to the forefront in allowing that success to occur. And really, the idea of a talent identification development system is really quite simple in that we're looking to move from what could be seen as standard practices towards these higher quality practices in relation to, I guess, the work that is done with athletes. So it's very much how we can increase the quality of the provision that's provided to athletes to allow them to be successful in the long run. Now, these talent identification development systems, there's multiple systems around the world, but really most of them follow this similar pathway. So what we can see here on the left is this idea of a normal population, normative population, which is normally the community game and the participation levels of the game, which were discussed yesterday. And then we can see this section in black, this triangle in black. And this is normally where athletes are identified within their sports to have some elements of potential to be successful in the long run. So a number of players or athletes or children and youths are identified into the system. Now, within the system, what we then see is that there is a smaller number of athletes at the initial stages, and at each stage of the system, what we see is that a smaller number of athletes are selected or identified to the next stage. And so ultimately we get to this idea where there is the professional athlete or the Olympic athlete. But this is definitely not a straight line, and we can see various arrows within this figure here in relation to withdrawal from sport, transfer in and out of systems, non-retention within systems. So it's definitely not linear, but it's really normally structured around this idea of a pyramidal type system, where we have a broad base at the bottom at the community, and really in terms of podium or professional Olympic athletes, there is few of those that achieve success. So this is the UK sport model in relation to their systems and pathways. And what we know really summarises that as we go up this pathway, the number of opportunities as we go up the pathway decreases for the number of athletes that can be selected within that. But also the support and provision that is provided to athletes in that pathway increases as we go up. So we'd expect better facilities, higher quality coaching, more intense training and competition. And really, quite simply, that's, I guess, how a talent identification and development system works. But over the last sort of 10 to 20 years, there's been a range of research that's identified some problems with this. And I like to classify that into really two questions. The first one is, from that identification, who does or does not get these opportunities to be selected or identified into a talent identification development system? And again, there's been a range of research looking at that in some of the opportunities that exist. The second question that has then been raised in practice and the research is around, for those individuals that get identified and selected, how appropriate and how healthy are these systems? Okay, which is really into today's talk and that we're presenting in the research is where we're going to focus. And in previous work, we've identified or highlighted this idea around a talent ID and development system being a friend or foe. And we've presented previously for I Coach Kids in this, and maybe refer back to the YouTube videos in relation to that approaches this idea around whether it is a friend or a foe type system. But ultimately, it depends on the opportunities they get. So we've done some work in this, and I was lucky enough to work with Professor Joe Baker, who's going to present next in relation to a paper around the appropriateness and healthiness of these systems, where we looked at some of the challenges and possible solutions, which I'm sure Joe will touch upon. And within that within that paper, we looked at the health considerations for these systems and this idea around early specialisation, etc. So there's some existing work in relation to that. Also work from a colleague of mine at Leeds Beckett University, Dr. Fika Rongan. We started to, again, try and answer that question and look at this in relation to the impacts that occur because of being involved in these systems. And ultimately, our range of impacts can be positive or negative in a range of different areas, from physical, psychosocial, educational, etc. And in that paper, we really sort of suggested that these systems have a possibility for a wide range of positive and negative, intended and unintended, and short and long-term health and performance impacts. So children and athletes being involved in these systems, there's a range of positives and negatives from a health and performance perspective that we need to be aware of. So when we sort of ask the question around, are youth sport talent identification and development systems healthy? it's definitely not a yes or no answer. These systems are neither inherently good or bad, but instead their impact reflects how well they are designed, implemented, and managed, so that youth athletes systematically secure positive health and holistic development outcomes. And this idea around design, implementation, and managed is really what we class as a talent development environment, and how that environment can actually shape these outcomes from a health and a holistic development outcome. But we need to do more research in relation to understanding this environment to acknowledge whether, you know, how that relates to these outcomes. So I'll pass you on to Barney, who's going to explain how we're going to do that.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Kevin. So as Kevin alluded to there, actually, when we talk about talent development systems, within that, what we're really concerned with for health and holistic implications is how they're implemented and managed. And that places our real focus on the particular talent development environments within these systems. And then when we talk about these environments, we're really concerned with the whole situation that our young athletes are involved with, both on a tangible physical level, and that's maybe the actual physical structures which they train in, but also more on a social and relational level. So the social interactions that maybe the coaches and the athletes have in their environment, which all of these we're suggesting that can shape and influence how our athletes develop healthy and holistic outcomes. So what Kev's drawn in there and I've just spoke about really draws us now into where we're at with iCoachKids Plus in our research program. So yesterday, Kevin and Stacey gave a little bit of an overview of what iCoachKids Plus does, and now this is the specific talent development arm of iCoachKids at the moment, and that's focused on developing. As you'll see from the title here, is ultimately leading towards the development of holistic development guidelines for talent development environments to use. And at the moment, we're shaped by various research questions, which some of these are outlined here. And these will direct us in the next 2.5 to 3 years of research, which we've got to look forward to, which small part will make up some of my research, my PhD research as well. So some of the research questions we're interested in really answering are ultimately, as Kevin said, evaluating TDEs, so understanding what they're like at the moment, more widely and also from a holistic perspective, but also particularly how can they support our young athletes to develop holistically and these healthy outcomes. And then more widely is what role do stakeholders, so that's parents, coaches, directors, for example, and also context, gender, sport, country, play in mediating these different outcomes. For example, do different gender talent development environments vary between holistically developmental they are, for example. And to really capture the way we see this research going, we have to take a mixed methods and more importantly, a multidisciplinary approach, really because holistic development is such a wide thing, multifaceted, and it really encompasses many different aspects of athlete development. We have to kind of encompass that and look at it from multiple angles. Kevin? Thank you. Yeah, so I'm just going to quickly take us through the different phases of what we'll be doing in the next 2.5 years, and then we'll jump into some questions after that as well. So really we're asking, first of all, is asking the question of what's out there already. So both from a practical and research perspective is asking what's been done, how have TDEs been researched as well, and what do we know about them already. And then after that, we have different parts of our primary research collection. And the first part of that is a wide scale sample with athletes, parents, coaches, understanding how they perceive the talent development environments that they work in and live in. And we're using a pre-established questionnaire called the TDEQ5 to do that. We hope that's going to be quite a large sample, and that'll help us answer those questions around what do TDEs look like at the moment. And then the second part of our research is working with our partners, and specifically FIBA next year. We're going to use the same questionnaire, but we're also going to use some more qualitative methods to take a deeper dive into these different TDEs. And we're going to work with FIBA to look at some of their junior elite talent development environments at their different European and world games as well next year. And then the final part of our research is a further deep dive into talent development environments from a qualitative perspective. And all of this research leads us, as I spoke to earlier, leads us to create some different outputs. And on our research perspective, that is the development of some kind of theoretical and conceptual concepts around talent development and holistic development in talent development. And also particularly is holistic development and healthy development in talent development environments particularly. And we see a new area of research emerging out of this. And particularly one thing we're interested in is developing some clarity in terms that, and that we hope will help the translation of theory to practice a little bit better. So for example, what do we mean by holistic development? How do people understand that? If we're more clear on that and we can put that into writing, that can help us coaches and help coach educators in the field. And then finally, from our apply perspective is kind of our impact indicators are the iCoachKids outputs. So all of our research, all our data will go into creating iCoachKids resources, online training courses, infographics, all sorts of different things. And coaches and coach educators will engage in those and use the information that's produced from those. And then that, drawing back to what Kev said, will hopefully translate into better designed, implemented TIDs and TDEs. And finally, drawing all together is that hopefully will result in improved youth athlete outcomes, increase in positive health and holistic development. Drawing back to what Kev said again, is the important thing here is that we're interested in youth athlete outcomes, both from performance perspectives and also general life outcomes perspectives, just ensuring that the athletes have the best outcomes they can from their talent development environment, both performance and life as well. So that draws the content of the presentation to a conclusion, and we'll welcome your questions now.
Thank you very much. Looking at the questions, there are a few very interesting questions, and I also noticed that Sergio is quite interested to actually answer them live. So I will pass over to Sergio for that part.
No, that was just me not using Zoom properly. So I was just tagging them to be answered by Kev or Barney. Okay, so back to you. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I would like to put one question live, and then because there are a few questions that may take time to answer, I think we can then you can then do that in the chat form. I think since we have a worldwide audience, I think this question from Scott Murray is interesting given the presentation is discussing European sport. Any comments from the presenters on or attendees about the talent ID in Americas, Asia's, other continents? I think this will be interesting to answer.
Yes, thanks, Radmilla. I guess, we've identified that this poly work does need to be done across the world. I guess the iCoachKids project is, is an Erasmus project with partners from Europe initially, so that is where our research will focus initially across the Europe, with the support from the range of partners, obviously FIBA being one of the key partners in that. But I guess the more research, and I'm sure Joe will touch on this in the next presentation, it's probably areas that need developing across the world, and everyone the systems will depend on the context and the countries. So I guess we'd be happy to discuss ideas or look at how we could potentially support that moving forward as well.
Thank you, Kevin. And I would like to add from basketball perspective that, of course, for us, a lot of the programs that we do and test in Europe, with the assistance of the Erasmus Plus funding, which we're very grateful for, we then actually expand and share and develop worldwide. So I think it's like everything else, we're fully aware of the importance to share and grow together. So thank you very much. And as we said already, there are quite a few other questions that you can answer in the chat. And then I pass over to Gary. Thank you very much. Excellent presentation.
Thank you.